appears as though police are preparing, most likely, to round up these protesters who have refused to leave and load them up into these D.C. police vans and take them in. I do think it's important to note that while there is obviously quite a bit of police activity here, and I believe we're about to witness some arrests, everything here has been incredibly peaceful. And in fact, on both sides, we've heard protesters speaking with police, and while they are clearly upset with each other, there hasn't been any conflict. And here you go, guys. You're watching it live on Fox 5. I believe this is the first arrest of this group of protesters here on I Street, just by I and 16th Street, about 2 blocks from the White House. So there's that gentleman in the red shirt. He has not fought police at all. It appears as though they are now taking off his bandana. Behind him, there's another person peacefully being carried away by police. And I think what we're about to see is these guys get zip-tied, most likely behind their back. That does appear to be the case right now with the gentleman in the red shirt. And essentially, police are just going in and they're pulling these protesters in one at a time. You can see a bit of a disagreement here. That I would not call much of a conflict, but I can tell you guys, because I think this is really important for context, that's the most conflict that we have seen with our own eyes out here all day. And essentially, you've got this group of protesters still sitting in the middle of all of these police officers, and you see this woman out who was sitting there in the middle of I Street, and wow, police are literally dragging her to the police van. It actually looks like another police officer stepped in and said, "Stop." I believe this woman was allowed to kind of readjust her clothing. We're being told back up. Yes, sir. No problem. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I understand. They're moving us back. We move back.
Back over here now.
Back over here? Okay.
But see the pole?
This is my buddy. I'm making friends out here.
You're not helping me.
I apologize. I thought we were in a good place. So we are moving, but you can still see the action here. That woman who was literally dragged out of this crowd is now sitting there pretty calmly, and I would assume that just like everybody else, she's eventually going to be picked up, zip-tied behind her back, and loaded into one of these vans. Actually, the first person who we saw get zip-tied is still standing over there. That's the gentleman in the red shirt. Yes, sir. I apologize. I didn't mean to disobey. I apologize. Sincerely, I didn't mean to.
With the president and suggested, and maybe quite a while, I just want to do this for a second here. The procedure,
the White House, where we also see a line of military police behind them. You have police on horseback
of these vans, and essentially what happens now is that D.C. police will collect all of their property on them. That includes wallets, glasses. If you have a bicycle, which we saw someone there, they will detail all that equipment in a list, and you can see that police officer there writing it down. You'll also look for a dry erase board, and there you will see that names are being written down. It will be the person's name and as much information as they can have of that person, and then a photograph will be taken of the arrested person at the scene with what they're wearing, in case this does then lead to any sort of trial, whether that be a civil trial, a criminal trial, whatever, but there needs to be evidence to remark that moment and the evidence that was recovered at the scene, who these people were and what they were wearing at the time, in case they need to match them up later in a criminal trial if there is to be any violence that is correlated with that defendant, or if they're just issued a citation and then they will be asked to appear before a judge. And then these people also have the right to sue the Department of D.C. Police if they feel that their rights were at some point violated, and it'll all go back to this moment right here, which is the arrest moment, and you see that dry erase board right there in that officer's hand, and essentially here in a second, that board will be placed in front of that person with the red shirt. They will be photographed, and that is how the conclusion of that arrest will happen here in minutes.
Hey, Marina, let's go back to the other shot we saw a moment ago. I want to go back over towards the White House, where you see many people walking down the streets. I hear hands up. Hands up, don't shoot. Reminiscent of the Michael Brown protests out of Ferguson, Missouri a few years ago. They are passing the White House at this moment from that vantage point. As you spin around, you get a sense, hopefully we can get a sense of the crowd. It's It's a large crowd. Not sure how dense it is as they walk by one of the guard shacks not too far away from the White House and the EOB, the Eisenhower Executive Office Building, which is, of course, the building adjacent to the White House.
It looks like right now, Jim, I just want to...
Yeah, no doubt about that.
They walked past the Daughters of American Revolution Constitution Hall, so they're in fact walking north there into downtown D.C., essentially where Josh is standing now. So they will be confronted by that D.C. police presence, which was already in effect starting to make arrests for those people who were in violation of curfew. But again, like the point that Blake had made earlier tonight, and we see this happen all the time at the U.S. Capitol, people know that they will be arrested, but they believe that their rights and their right to protest is worth the arrest, and that's essentially what we're seeing happen, because for now, what we're looking at is peaceful.
Blake, hey, if we can, Blake McCoy is, by the way, if you're watching right now, Jim Lokay, Blake McCoy, Sean Yancey, Marina Morocco standing by, and Blake has a question for Marina, so let's go back over to Blake.
Yeah, you know, Marina, I saw a lot of people wondering, what difference does a curfew make? Because people aren't going to pay attention to it.